Thank you for tuning in to the Council Takeaways. I'm Cedric Suzman, Director of Programming for the World Affairs Council of Atlanta, and I have with me this afternoon Ambassador Stuart Eizenstat, who is with us to talk about his book, The Future of the Jews, How Global Forces Are Impacting the Jewish People, Israel, and its relationship with the United States. It's a fascinating title, and the way you framed the future of the Jews within the context of global forces. How did you come to that perspective, and what brought you to write the book, perhaps?
Well, I co-chair with Dennis Ross the Jewish People's Policy Institute in Jerusalem, which was created to be a sort of think tank for geopolitical issues facing the Jewish people. And around 2008 or 9, when President Peres of Israel had his first presidential conference, they asked me to do a sort of keynote paper to frame the major issues. And it forced me to sort of think of how the major forces I had been dealing with in my political life during several administrations, when I was in the Carter administration, Clinton administration, actually impacted on the Jewish people, on Israel, and on its relationship with the United States. So really the impetus was this paper they asked me to do, and from that paper I decided to expand it into a book and to update it to make sure that it was current with the tremendous tectonic changes that are occurring in the world, which affect Jews, affect Americans, affect Israel as well.
Do you think that the rising emerging powers, if we might call them that, China, India, the Brazils, the BRICS, if you like, but that excludes Russia because that's an old relationship, unfortunately, with the Jewish people. But do you think these new relationships are a threat or an opportunity for Israel today?
Well, I think that they're both. If handled poorly, they're a threat. If handled properly, they can be an opportunity, and that's the same with the United States as well. I mean, what's really changed is that there have always been instances, Cedric, where one power over history took over for another, and usually after a major battle like Trafalgar or Waterloo. What's different now is a whole group of countries at the same time have come onto the world scene to assert themselves. This makes it more difficult for the United States, which is Israel's only ally, to develop the kind of consensus that's necessary for a stable, democratic, tolerant world, and one in which Israel and the United States are secure. Because each of these countries wants its own foreign policy, its own day in the sun. So in that sense, it is a more complicated world environment. But on the other hand, because we're a more integrated world, we're more mutually dependent on each other, it also creates opportunities for more stability and more opportunity for Israel as well, which is, after all, a very tiny country with a very small market. Now they can sell into a global market, which they couldn't have done 20 years ago, with products that are world-class, and so this creates a tremendous opportunity for them economically.
Another aspect, very briefly, that I found fascinating, you point out that Israel now has more Jews than the United States, that it's overtaken. How is that changing the relationship, do you think?
In 1939, before World War II, only 3% of the Jewish population of the world lived in pre-state Israel and Palestine. Today it's 43%, and it's just surpassed the United States. So that creates a new paradigm in relationships between the Jewish diaspora and Israel. The diaspora had always seen itself as the senior partner in this relationship. Now it's Israel that's a senior partner, and this imposes obligations on Israel to help strengthen the diaspora as well as to continue to seek support from the diaspora.
So it's a changing and evolving relationship.
Very, very changed relationship.
Well, Ambassador Eizenstat, we are honored at the World Affairs Council of Atlanta to have you as our guest this evening. We'll talk about your book, and we're delighted. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.